Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to the show. Thanks for hanging in there as we get started just a minute or two late here. I hate doing that, but it was unavoidable today as we dealt with a camera permissions issue, which apparently that's a thing that can happen in the wacky world of stuff. All right, let me get my keys working out here, and I guess we're gonna just do that for now. All right. Well, that's what we get for restarting 2 seconds before the end of the show. Oh, and the hair is obviously just going to do its own thing today. All right, guys. Hey, welcome. For the next hour or so, we'll be talking about comics and comic-based related type stuff. I got a lot to talk about today. We are going to be talking about some new things we slipped into ComicBase just this last week. A bunch of new stuff for Atomic Avenue, which rarely gets covered on the show, but we'll be talking about some of that today. And also, we'll be talking about a shipping shootout. So we're going to go through the pros and cons of different mailers that we've gotten a hold of for shipping comic books, tell you what we found through our own tests on using these things to ship real world things. And if time serves, I'll tell you about some great deals on some Amazon stuff that we saw coming up during their October Prime that I think you might want to, get interested in. Oh, and we also have to talk about PayPal because, wow. Those guys are doing crazy things these days, and it's making my life very complicated. But before we get into all that stuff, let me just move some windows around here so I'm not constantly flicking my eyes back and forth, and we'll take it from there. All right, and say hi to everyone here. Mike, you're first in the room today. Welcome. Great to see you. Oro, you get skunked out today, but welcome from Minneapolis. Robbie, great to see you again. Andre, as always. Edwin. Tim Gilbreth, welcome from Winnebago, Illinois. Nice. Sunny and 57. Yeah, it's starting to cool off out here outside Nashville. Just I don't know how much summer or fall we've even got left because when it tends to get cold out here, it gets cold in a hurry. So we've seen snow not too long from now, so I wouldn't be surprised. Jeff Schultz, great to see you. Xanadu Comics, welcome. Thanks for joining us. And yes, Wealthy Livestream Radio local too. Yeah, I thought about going live with just the audio because that was actually working for some reason, but it was not to be. Because I realized, among other things, I have to show you lots of stuff on the screen, or you would never have any idea what the heck I'm talking about. So we're making do as best we can. All right. Well, if this is the sort of thing you like, by the way, please hit that like and subscribe button, and also hit the bell so you get notified of all the different things. We have been delayed getting we have a number of video projects in the works, but we've been delayed getting this going because we've been busy doing like real things with the software lately. But I do hope to get on top of that soon. And I think that will do us for now. All right. So, and I'm going to have to hit the flashing record button, turn that off because that's clearly not happening on my ISO switcher here. The switcher that we're using to run the show right now has developed some kind of bizarre fault where it doesn't want to, just periodically after using it, it will just lock up. So they sent me a new one that's in one of the giant boxes next to me, but I haven't had a chance to swap it in before the show because we've been doing other things. All right, well, let's get on to it. I'm sorry. Last thing I want to say is if you guys have questions, that's, of course, the most important thing. There's what I want to talk about, and there's what you want to talk about. I want to do what y'all want to talk about. So if you have questions, please post them in the chat and put them to @ComicBaseTV, and that way I'll have a half chance to see what the heck you guys are asking about, and that's not just banter amongst yourselves. All right, Richard Scott also great to see you as well. Brian and Greg Heck, the mod, is in the house, so watch out, folks. Oh, and Fabian Van Drisha from Belgium. Great to have you join us, man. All right. All right, so the current build of ComicBase right now is ComicBase build 2023, build 1832. So if you've been following the beta builds in ComicBase, so you can download that one. We've managed to pump in a couple of things that are pretty actually significant in the last week. Let me show you a couple of those. Let me switch over to the monitor over here, and we'll take that. And that's not doing it. So let me flip. Oh, is that 8? No. Oh, come on! Don't do this to me here. Let's see. Okay, there we go. There's the key on that one. These are all the things that get a little bit out of sync if you start out late. All right, so first of all, let's go to a long title with lots of variants in it. We get Doctor Who. Let's do Department of Truth. That's all right. So when you guys look at a title like Department of Truth, and let's zoom in here so you can notice it, you'll notice, we had a regular issue number 1, but that's about the last time we saw a regular issue. After that, everything was a variant of one sort or another, 30 variants on the first thing. By the time you got a couple issues into the whole thing, you notice that they're not even trying to do regular issues anymore. There was a 7A, a 7B. There was never an issue 7, or for that matter, a regular issue anything of this darn series. Anyway, you guys might know that one of the quick ways of getting to where you want to go when you're scrolling through a long title is to hit the jump command, which is F3. So I'm going to hit that right now. It pops up a little thing and says, all right, jump to what item? Now, in the past, you would type something like 20, and if there was no issue 20, it would just kind of go, I don't see one. Now, with this latest build, if you hit issue 20, even if there is no actual issue 20, it'll say, well, the next closest thing I got is I'll jump you to 20A. It's a little thing, but it's these little things that kind of, in toto make the whole thing, nice to use. So we added that one in the last week. That's one of the smaller things we did. All right. Of more interest, but it's I'm gonna admit it's harder to find. Is we've been doing a lot of work lately with the integration to Atomic Avenue and dealing with a bunch of issues with that. And so we got a chance to give some love to some features that kind of been a little bit ignored of late. And one of them is the ComicBase wish list and how it works with the wanted list in ComicBase. Let me see if I can get my face on screen here. So okay, if I just I'm just gonna move the camera ever so slightly this way, and that way I don't need to slump in my chair to get into the shot. One of the things that we had going is if you mark a comic as wanted in ComicBase, we have a nice report for that sort of thing, so we can show a wanted list. But one of the things that's kind of cool is that, well, I mean, I want the comic book. It'd be really nice if someday it showed up and I could buy it, huh? So we had the idea of allowing a feature where you could sync your wanted list to Atomic Avenue. So anything you mark as wanted, if it sees one come through the system on Atomic Avenue, it could actually let you know, and then you could pick it up and you would no longer want it. We did that out there. It kind of works, the way you want, but it was not quite as slick as we wanted. And so we did some things to make it better. And where, interestingly, where the integration of all this comes down is in Sidekick, which is the little companion program that comes with ComicBase. You find Sidekick down here in the bottom right-hand corner. I was just talking to a guy right before the show. This is called your notification area in Windows. Click the little up arrow down there and look for the guy that looks like a superhero right down there. That's Sidekick. Click on him and you'll see the Sidekick window. Now, Sidekick is meant to do all the boring stuff in ComicBase. It's, pulls down your updates, posts, items for sale if you got them as sale on Atomic Avenue, pulls down your sales if you've made sales, back up your database, stuff like that. What the important thing it does is, and let's go to the settings so you can see it, is out here when we check our settings for saving to cloud is, oh, darn it, did I not? Oh, this is the worst demo ever because I did not update this one before the show. Give me just a second. We'll see if I can't fix that. Did I not get this going? Well, if not, then it's going to be a short demo and I'll just be talking over it, and that's going to suck. So I went and I updated the computer right before the show, but I'm not sure if I pulled down their latest build. And 1832, it should have it. Let me see. All right, so if I save to cloud, no, it's not showing up here. Apologize for that, guys. It's all right. So I'm just going to say it's going to show up. By the time you get to this, I'll describe what we had going on, and you'll probably have to re-download it. So demo fail on my part, but let's move on. When you go and you save to cloud, so this is a feature that's uniquely in Sidekick. You've got the option here to back up what you've got going on, back up your database to our web servers so that you can pull them down if something happens to your machine. While you're at it, you can also say, hey, while you're at it, would you mind making me every single time, say, a collection overview or print out my collection report? So you can do these standard reports and have them available to you. Just you don't have to remember to save them. And this is actually the old version here is let you add wanted issues to your Atomic Avenue wish list. Now, that's what that would do is anything you had marked as wanted, it would go ahead and add it, but it left us wanting more. And so, look for about an hour after the show and you should be able to download it, because we'll find out what happened with the distribution that it didn't get up there because we just slipped this in. There's going to be a couple other options that you'll see on that. And what those options are going to be is you'll have the option to, let me go ahead and put myself full screen again if I can manage it. Let's see here. Is that, and then I want to kill that key there. I think oh, I see the problem is I don't have my green keyer up, and that's why all the switching is weird. Give me just a second, and then I'll confuse myself ever so slightly less. Anyway, what we wanted to do, H2R graphics, sorry, dead air for just a half a second here while I get this going. Output is on green screen, and now everything should work. Yay! Okay, you have no idea how confused I get when I push a button to switch cameras and I just see like a computer screen instead of my lovely smiling visage. All right, so what we did is we added, well, we had the option before where if you had something that was wanted in ComicBase, that it would automatically add it to an Atomic Avenue wish list. So far, so good. Two problems with this. First one is, well, what if I got a copy somewhere along the line? Yeah, I don't really want it anymore. I don't want to keep on getting mail saying, "Hey, there's a new copy of that Tales from the Crypt Archives #2 that you just picked up last Sunday. There's one available on Atomic Avenue." Well, that's great, but I already bought it. Couldn't you take it off my wish list? So there's two new options there. The first one allows you to automatically take things off your wish list if they're in stock, and the other one allows you to automatically mark them as no longer wanted in ComicBase if you have a copy, and that's all found under Sidekick. So look for that one in the very near future. One problem we had, and this actually might, sorry, I'm trying to recall staff meetings from earlier in the week. One of the reasons it probably doesn't appear right now is because we realized that this thing's buried pretty darn deeply in the feature. So I wanted to give you guys the heads up first that this thing exists, because you have to go looking, first of all, in a program that half the people don't know exists, Sidekick. Then you have to go to the settings, and then you have to go back to save to cloud to find these settings. But when you do find them, it should make managing your wish list on Atomic Avenue, and for that matter, your wanted list in ComicBase, your list of wanted comics, should make that quite a bit easier. But it's in a weird place. So what we're thinking is we're probably going to surface this feature as one of the things that we give you as part of the getting started. So if you've never been asked about it before, we'll set a preference setting, and we'll basically just say, hey, here's what this does. Here's the effects on your wanted list. And did you want us to turn this on for you? And if so, it would set all three settings to the thing that we're describing. The reason we don't automatically set them all to be on is because, just as a matter of design, you never want to set something on that's going to drive your customers nuts. So for instance, if every time you mark something as wanted in ComicBase, it suddenly started getting mail from Atomic Avenue on it and you didn't expect it, well, that's not a good user experience, as they say. So we're not going to do that automatically. We're certainly going to ask you first, and we're not going to default it that way. But that being said, it's a good way to find comic books. I'd strongly encourage you to look at it. But the other thing is we're never going to remove anything from a list of yours unless you said yes and knew that you were saying yes. So that's also why we don't default it to automatically removing things from your wanted list. So look for those in the upcoming build. You'll see them shortly, and I think should help a lot. All right, so let's go over and talk about Atomic Avenue-y things. Like I said, we don't talk about them a lot on the show, and that's a shame. But let's go ahead and do that now. So let me go over here and let's show a little bit about Atomic Avenue. So Atomic Avenue is an online system. It's run by a different division within human computing. So I kind of have impunity to talk about all things ComicBase related. That's not the same with Atomic Avenue. We have to talk about talking before I can talk. But anyway, where we're at right now, this is a great place to buy and sell comic books. So if you have comic books that you want to sell, easiest integration in the world, just mark them as for sale in ComicBase. And there's a feature in ComicBase where you just say, post your items for sale on Atomic Avenue, and all the books that you've got marked as for sale then go up for sale at the prices you've already listed. And if someone wants them, then they can just say, oh, hey, you've got a copy of Booster Gold #4. I was looking for that. Boom, add to cart. And then they check out. You basically at that point the whole model works just like Amazon used books. You get a note saying, all right, you sold Booster Good #4. So, ship it out to this guy right there. 2 weeks later, you get a payment transferred into your PayPal account for the amount less like 15% commission or whatever it winds up looking at be. But there's nothing to do. I mean, all you got to do is ship the books as orders come in and you're done. So that part's pretty sweet. And I use it on the back end myself, just as a customer of the thing to sell all the books that, roll through here in the office. So as I think I mentioned last week, I think over time I've sold something like 64,000 comic books over that darn system. So yeah, and that's why we're going to be talking about shipping in a bit, because we learned a lot of things about shipping over the years, and we're going to tell you about that. All right, but Atomic Avenue itself, we have, worked with them over the last couple of weeks to make a few things better that users requested. And by the way, if you have requests that you'd like to see for Atomic Avenue, please go to their forums, forums.atomicavenue.com, and they have a feature request form. And please let them know what you're looking for, what you think could be better, because I know they're listening, because they dragged me in to get some of the stuff to actually happen lately. So anyway, first thing, let's go and let's start typing in here. And you'll notice that a lot of this works a lot like ComicBase for a reason. So I'm just go looking for a title, and here's Captain America. And here's first series, Canadian series, second, third, fourth, etc. Now, one thing that people had asked for just recently is that they actually add the years as you're going through one of these crazy titles with like a million series to it. And yeah, that actually happens. So that's good. It makes browsing around the system quite a bit better. Other things that have happened. The wish list on Atomic Avenue was always a little bit weird. The reason is because you could want the the book, mark the book as being one in stock. And by the way, if you guys are feeling generous and happen to have these around, these are the extended versions. This is from my own wish list of things I'm actually looking for. But you'd occasionally go in here, and if it had a check next to it, that meant that someone had it for sale. Well, in the past, you'd see a lot more checks, and then when you go check on it, it wouldn't actually be there for sale. And the reason was because typically, I mean, there's a lot of reasons that even though it's for sale somewhere on the system, they can't sell it to you. There are sellers who are in other countries that don't ship to the U.S. There's sellers in the U.S. who don't ship to other countries. There are people who have, who go on vacation. There's a vacation setting that sellers can have where you're going to disappear for 5 days and you can't ship books. Well, mark it as on vacation. But if you forget to, mark yourselves back from vacation, well, then you have all these books that are sitting out there ready to be bought, and nobody can buy them. Now, the system does a decent job of filtering most of the stuff out when you're browsing around the system, but they did a really bad job, I was going to say, of pulling that stuff out of the wish lists. And so you'd go to your own wish list, and it would make you crazy, because there'd be all these things would be like, oh man, finally I see a copy of this thing right there, and clicking on it and seeing no one willing to sell it to you is crazy making. That's largely been cleaned up right now, and so hopefully that helps a lot. We do believe right now that you won't be getting email notifications about things that you can't buy. If that is still an issue for anybody, let support at Atomic Avenue know immediately. Hell, for that matter, let Pete Bickford at Human Computing know immediately, because I'm the idiot telling you that I think that they've got that all fixed, and if I'm wrong, I'm probably have to make that get not wrong. So, but that should be good now. So basically, just sort of a new concept in Atomic Avenue is that when you see things for sale, in general, you can actually buy them. This is actually, and that sounds insane saying it out loud, but it's actually a bit of a change from the initial concept of the system, because when the system started out low these many years ago, it was very much an idea of like, well, we have this thing interfaces with ComicBase. It will allow you to pull. Wow, it's amazing. It looks like there's a thunderstorm moving in. So if everything goes crazy in a bit, let me know. Well, I'll be the first to know, because everything will go dark. If so, then you guys just all have a beer, because that'll be the end of the show. I think we're going to be good, unless we get like a direct lightning strike. But wow, I'm hearing the weather coming in right now, and it's crazy. It was beautiful about half an hour ago. Anyway, but the original concept of the system was, well, okay, we interface with ComicBase. Some tens of millions of books have been entered into ComicBase over the years. For any comic book you could ever want, if it doesn't exist for sale right now, surely it's only a matter of time. And for the vast majority of comics in the world, that is actually true. So, I mean, if I'm looking for any mainstream or even non-mainstream Marvel, DC, Image, Dark Horse, Charlton, whatever else book, on the planet, except for the ones that cost like $10,000, they wander through the system on a pretty good clip. And if they're anything that any of us would ever have in our collections, there's probably a bunch of them that will come in there. So it's pretty good for that. But then as we got bigger and bigger with ComicBase and started taking on more and more foreign books, more and more really obscure things, then the odds of them wandering around someday went down and down and down, to the extent where, like, I'm obsessing about the idea of filling out an English hardcover graphic novel series that was only sold by subscription to, people for a now defunct, book company in England. And I'm trying to, find the last 6 promotional premium graphic novels I'm missing for that one. I could be in for a good long wait. And it isn't like I'd have better luck looking on eBay or any place else. But if that's the case, well, then, the whole model of, just show everything, and, if it's not there, it'll be there soon. That's less appropriate the more we go and expand the domain of ComicBase and of Atomic Avenue. So, kind of a sea change on Atomic Avenue is when you go and you view just whatever. Let's just go to, I'm just going to go to a random title. Let's go Captain Atom. All right, so here's Captain Atom. Let's go to the Charlton series right now. So you'll see at the top right here, I'm sorry, right under where I put my head. Let me turn my head off for a minute. We've got show only in stock items. That's a checkbox there that I'm not sure if it was there before, but it wasn't. If it was, it definitely wasn't checked by default, and now it is. So now the good news is when you go to Atomic Avenue and you're looking for things, the only books you're actually going to see are the ones that they actually can sell you, and that makes browsing the system just a lot nicer. Other things where that comes up is when you go to these carousels and you're looking for something like magazines. You look at newly arrived things like that. Let's say I live in a place where I'm not allowed to buy the latest issue of Playboy, or that person isn't selling internationally. If I click on Playboy number 613, it isn't going to show up for me in the carousel unless I can actually click on it and get it. Which, as it turns out, that apparently, wow, Jenny McCarthy for $1.10, it's all yours, courtesy of my own collection, as it turns out. That was from a big box of comic books or of Playboys the guy across the street was selling me at a time when I was sitting there going, hey, garage sale across the street, guy's selling storage tubs. They want 2 tubs for $10. And they come with about 100 years of Playboy in them. Okay, same price with or without the magazines. Okay, cool, $10, 2 storage tubs, done. Anyway, so that was the story of my giant Playboy collection. But anyway, but yeah, Starlog, whatever else, you can, when you browse these things, you can actually buy them now. That's a good thing. But if you do, on the other hand, want to wait in vain in vain or not, for things that you see as browsing through the system that you don't see right away, make sure you check that upper right hand box that says whether or not you're showing only the things that are available right now, because if so, you can add them to the wish list at that point, and maybe things, you get lucky one day and you get a note saying, hey, that copy of Omni you were looking for is now available, which actually, no, I'm seeing it. Omni magazine number 201 from Capco for $1. I'm like, I might grab that. All right, so all right, that's a thing of note on Atomic Avenue. The biggest thing of note on Atomic Avenue, let's go ahead to go to a store here. If I go to, well, let's go pick somebody. How did it draw manga? Hey, it's my store. Cool. All right, so when you click on somebody's stuff, here's Pete's Warehouse of Wonders, as we so fancifully call my own store. Yes, whenever you sell on Atomic Avenue, you can call your store whatever you want it to be. But you'll notice that now, finally, after all this time, when you go to the seller stores, you can actually say, not just see the people's comic books, but now you can say, hey, show my books. Here's 2008, Aliens, Tribes, etc. You could say show magazines, etc. And boom, you can actually browse all of a seller's inventory right through the store site at long last. Beforehand, when they finally worked with us to get the integration to allow you to sell things that weren't just comic books on Atomic Avenue, we made it so if you were to say, I'm going to browse for 24 magazine, well, then you'd see who had a copy of 24 magazine number 1, 2, 3 for sale. You could get to it directly through the back way, but if you found that, hey, Pete has a copy of 24, does he have any other copies of 24? It was really pain, because there's no way of browsing my magazines before. You could only browse the comics. So that's finally been fixed. Yay, huzzah. I'm expecting much, much more. All right. let me go back to, I think that's the marquee stuff I want to talk about here. We're going to talk a little bit about PayPal. Let's see, wish list, years and title browse. Yes. Okay, that's the major PayPal feature. I'm sorry, Atomic Avenue features that came down last week that I want to talk about. And every once in a while, we have something that I call a feature, not a feature. And we have one of those with PayPal that's in development right now. But let me, before I do that, I've been talking for a while, so let me go to the chat just so I can catch my own breath. Let's see here. Let's Belgium's Johnny Carson. Nice. Just see. Jesse Comics says the new government money grab sure makes selling comic books not so funny anymore. Just take and take and take. Yeah, go so tired of it. Yeah. So yeah, feature, not feature, which is to say things that I got dragged into to help make happen on the system. But when you say, oh, okay, so what part of the user base will be thrilled that this happened? Were things like, yeah, as of this year with the American Recovery Act, they managed to slam through a rule that says if you made more than $600 selling anything in America, that the people who act as your marketplace are now required to file a 1099 form for you, so they can more accurately track every cent that went in and out of your bank account. And so that, of course, meant that, Atomic Avenue now has to shag down a gajillion people for, 1099, social security numbers and EINs and all that kind of nonsense, because it's all part of the reporting requirements at the end of the year. Now, does anyone get excited by the idea of like, oh, hey, can't wait to give up my, tax ID number or social security number to a, system so that the government can trace me more? No one looks forward to that. It's just one of those things that's got to be done, because otherwise, people face jail time, and Atomic Avenue is like, and it won't be us. So anyway, that's one of those things that if you get a mail this week saying, yeah, we need your social security from Atomic Avenue, click on the thing, give them your social security, they encrypt it, and you'll be getting a 1099 at the end of the year if you're above the $600 limit, which, well, let's face it, you do not have to sell a bunch of comic books to hit $600 these days. That sucks. So that is not a feature. Let's see here. Yeah, Greg reminds me, he's like, yeah, you're only supposed to record the stuff, but yeah, just now there's a bunch of paper that's being all double and cross-checked to make sure that you do report it. And let's see here. Oro asks, is there a way to see a full compilation of wanted items on Atomic Avenue? Might be more attempts to sell my dupes if a lot of demand for customized. Oh, you want to see like what things that everyone wants in the world? I don't believe that's something that is being envisioned right now. Yeah, there was some system. I forget what it was. It was a comic. Yeah, it was one of those systems like, oh yeah, we have no stuff for sale, but here's a whole big list of things that people who want stuff. I'm like, okay, I guess that's an option. I mean, to me, that's even crazier than the thing Atomic Avenue was doing at the beginning, where they sit there and say, well, here's a whole list of every possible item, and if you want it, then you can add it. That's whereas I feel like, yeah, it feels very sensible once you say it out loud. It's like maybe a online for sale system ought to show things that are for sale, as opposed to simply saying, here's all the items that could ever be, and some of them are actually available for sale. Having a big focus on something that's like, well, here's all the things that aren't for sale, I'm like, or that people wish were for sale, I'm like, I guess that's a take. Anyway, I don't know. I don't think that's something that they have going on, but you can certainly suggest it to them. And let me see what else is going on. Richard says, waiting for the Frankenstein comic show in Portland. There's a Frankenstein comic show? I feel like I'm missing something on that one, or is it just Halloween themed or whatever? Tell me more. Okay, so as far as other things that are feature, not feature, is in the things that we hate doing because they got to be done, but no one's really happy about them. So I'm currently in the process of rewriting the PayPal checkout flow for probably both ComicBase and Atomic Avenue at the end of the day. But what's happening is PayPal has decided that the payment product. I love how everyone who makes a financial service of one thing or other, it's like you're always buying a product. It's like, no, it's a service, kids. You're not fooling anyone. But they had one that was it was a payments pro is what they called it. It had what they basically it that let merchants, take a credit card, process, charges up through like that, and for that they would shag you down X many, bajillion dollars. They decided after 15 years they were going to remove the fraud management filter capability of that one, which is like, yeah, hell no. Which meant that if someone came in there with, pulled certain kinds of schemes on you, you'd be left holding the bag even if they approved the sale. That is no bueno. So, okay, well, no, neither human computing or Atomic Avenue is very interested in having that as the terms of engagement, because there's lots of bad people in the world, and nobody wants to be stuck holding the bag if they commit crimes and do it on your system. So anyway, so we're in the process right now of switching over to a different PayPal product that leaves things alone. It keeps the the fraud protection in place that we had, or that we currently have, but that they're planning on getting rid of. And for that, they are planning on charging a heavier baseline fee on every charge. It's like 49 cents plus 2.9% plus 49 cents for every single charge, and up to 3.49%, I believe, for PayPal charges. Somehow having a charge that's entirely PayPal is even more expensive than having one that's just credit cards. I never got a straight answer from them as to why that should be, but that's how it is. Anyway, so that is getting done behind the scenes. When it's all done, you will see absolutely no change in either system. It's just been a big pain in my butt for the last couple of weeks, going through all this nonsense. But that brings us to the topic of PayPal in general, is that in addition to the idea of like, oh, okay, so now we're scraping an extra, 0.5% out of you, or removing features, or, leaving, a higher baseline on everyone's transaction, which of course gets passed along to the consumer one way or another, which, that's just the way these things all go. Um, Nobody's happier. Nobody's life is being made better by any of this nonsense, and my life's being made significantly worse because I'm having to do all the coding to roll the stuff out and then go through all the testing of. I mean, honestly, if you see a programmer where like you have code that's been working perfectly fine for like 10 years, you have to pay programmers so much to even want to look at changing it. It's like, no, it's working. Don't mess with it. And so yes, we're having to go through that stuff, and that's no fun. So yeah, I'm not super thrilled about this particular job. But the other thing I'm really not super thrilled about is that PayPal decided in their, I don't know, some staff meeting someplace. They decided in the last, well, they probably decided months ago, but a week or two ago, they decided they were going to roll out some new terms of service on the site. And the terms of service they rolled out, it came light with, they were going to prohibit, quote, sending, posting of publication of any message, content, or materials that, in PayPal's sole discretion, are harmful, obscene, harassing, or objectionable, depict or appear to depict nudity, sexual, or other intimate activities, depict or promote illegal drug use, depict or promote violence, criminal activity, cruelty, or self-harm, depict, promote, or incite hatred or discrimination of protected groups or of individuals, or of groups based on protected characteristics, e.g. race, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, etc. They present a risk to consumer safety or financial well-being, or fraudulent promote misinformation, and by the way, pay careful attention to the promote misinformation or are unlawful, infringes on intellectual property rights of other people, otherwise, or quote, are otherwise unfit for publication. And note that this is at PayPal's sole discretion, so they could just decide you're doing these things. There's no appeal. There's no, you did it. So, well, what happens if you violate their terms of service in this regard? Well, if they did that, they decided that they were going to get. Do I have the exact quote on it? Oh, yes, here we are. If you're a seller and receive funds for transactions that violate the acceptable use policy, then in addition to being subject to the above actions, which is, say, canceling your account and doing bad things like that, you'll be liable for PayPal for the amount of PayPal's damages caused by your violation of the acceptable use policy. And you acknowledge that a good figure for these damages caused by you doing these things, you acknowledge and agree that $2,500 US per violation is presently a reasonable minimum standard for PayPal's actual damages, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, what this meant is that PayPal, at their sole discretion, could decide that something you were doing as a merchant was inciting hatred or promoting misinformation or any number of other things that were, not fit for publication and just take money out of your bank account. This was insane, of course. But it took a couple days for people to read through the thing, get done being gobsmacked at what they'd just written into the terms of service, or I'm sorry, the acceptable use policy, put it out to the world, and then have people say, "What the living hell are you talking about?" So you could just like let me make a potentially hateful comment and say things like, "Well, the vast majority of readers of superhero comic books in America are males." Oh my god, did I just discriminate against females with that thing? Was that a potentially hateful comment? True or not? I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's really females, but the fact that I said it, does that mean you get to just dock my account $2,500? Who does this? More importantly, who does business with somebody who does that? So yes, they the stuff hit the whirling blades, and PayPal went out and this stuff was reviewed by lawyers upon lawyers upon lawyers before being put out there, and they came out earlier this week and said, "Oh no, a big mistake, guys. We never meant that we would do this," and let me see what their exact response was. Oh, yes. An acceptable use policy recently went out in error that included incorrect information. PayPal's not fining people for misinformation, and this language was never intended to be inserted into our policy. One wonders how it might have gotten in there. Our teams are working to correct the policy pages. We're sorry for the confusion this has caused. A spokesman told they told in the written statement. So now they've changed it. That long list of items that they can now, fine you for, promoting and misinformation, things like that. It's been tailored quite a bit down, and now it's down to you can still get hit for $2,500 if you provide false, inaccurate, or misleading information. Oh, I guess that's better than I promoted misinformation. Because think about half the things that have been said about health issues in the last 2 years, all of which were completely banned one day, conspiracy theories, misinformation, before being admitted by, executives at Pfizer and the CDC just the other day. So yes, one man's misinformation. We used to have this thing where you'd say, "Hey, I have a point of view. I'll see if I can back it up with facts and logic. And then if I'm wrong, you can point out that I'm wrong using facts and logic. And it's called a discussion, maybe a disagreement if it gets heated, an argument even. But you talk, and that way two parties might actually come closer to the truth." But no, as soon as you say we have misinformation and there's only one official point of view, regardless of whether I change it the next day, if you're on the opposite side of that point of view the day before, masks work, masks don't work. No one should wear a mask. Masks are absolutely required. All statements of the sainted Dr. Fauci in the last year, as you recall, all of which were misinformation the day before. But PayPal side, they were going to dock people's bank accounts by $2,500 whenever they felt like it. So yeah, this has us thinking, how thrilled are we to be doing business with PayPal because of all this stuff? Because yeah, you walked it back. Yeah, you left it here, but you thought about doing it, and your denial is clearly a lie. This was not inserted by mistake. This was very, very deliberately inserted. Nothing happens in terms of use of large multi-billion-dollar companies like this that is done by mistake. It felt like it would fly, and it didn't fly, and you got caught out. So yeah, I got to say. This is a big hassle for us. It doesn't help anyone. But yeah, it's kind of like when a friend lies to you. It's like, it's hard to repair that trust. So yeah, we are currently evaluating alternatives. I'm just going to say it. I've been taking phone calls from a number of different financial institutions over the last day and a half, and we'll continue to do so. And there very likely are going to be some changes in our payment strategies going forward for both systems. That said, all right, and now let's look at the good side of PayPal for what it's worth. There was a time where when we started out, Human Computing or Atomic Avenue, and we had different merchant processors over the years. this PayPal thing came out, and it was like a nice way for like small people to like, hey, I didn't bring my wallet for dinner. Hey, let me shoot you, my cost of my meal. That way you wouldn't have to like break bills and do all the things that you do just in normal life to send a few bucks to your friends here and there. And it grew into, and by the way, Elon Musk, one of the founders, it grew into this absolute, leviathan of a financial company. It basically it's the company that ate eBay. eBay and PayPal were one big company at one point. They basically PayPal ate eBay and then later on spun it out. But I have even contracted at both companies at one point or another, because I live down the road from them in Silicon Valley, about 4 miles away. Um, but anyway, they do a really good service in terms of like, again, for acting as a way to pay people, casually, this, that, or the other thing. It's a nice, easy way to do it. I mean, Visa's never going to quite do it the way they do. But in the years since, there's been a jillion other services that have entered that space. The Cash apps, Venmo is a spin-off that again, PayPal ate. Venmo is still PayPal. It's just under a different name. But there's a number of other ones. But in the very beginning of this whole thing, when we first offered a PayPal option, we got a lot of pushback from people who were sitting there saying, well, I know who Visa is. I know who MasterCard is. I know who you guys are because I'm buying stuff from you. But who is PayPal? Why would I give them my credit card information? Are you crazy? And the funny thing is, after a couple of years, when PayPal became very ubiquitous, we got the opposite approach. We're like, well, I know who PayPal is. I know what Visa is, but I don't know if I trust you enough to give you my credit card. It's like, wow, okay, that's a switch around. And let's face it, any business, we want to have you give us your credit card for any reason. We just want to make the sale. I mean, it's like, we would like to be trusted, but we're not here to argue with you. We're here to deliver a service and earn your trust and your money. So we live in a world now where, okay, now people have a lot of opinions about the safety of this, that, and the other thing. They might have some safety about, people, is it okay to give, this guy my credit card or that guy my credit card? But you need to make it so that commerce can still take place. We're starting to have issues with how much do we want PayPal in the midst of all this stuff? Do we trust them to do their part? And so, we're talking to other folks. I mean, again, I'm not sure if the fact that the other folks can do the same job but for lower fees would have gotten us to move. But between the two things, we're like, they changed the rules of the fraud game on us, and they made us go back to the code that had been working forever and redo it. Between that and the fiasco with their acceptable use policy, we're thinking. But there's still going to be people who sit there and say, look, man, I don't know you guys. I just want to buy a comic book. I got PayPal. I trust them. They're still going to want to pay with PayPal, right? If you go to someone else, they can't pay with PayPal, right? So you got to keep the PayPal thing running on some level. It doesn't mean that any of your other transactions that aren't specifically PayPal have to go through it. But yeah, I mean, is it in our advantage to offer lots of other options for those things? To keep PayPal, not keep PayPal. What do you guys think? Let me know in the chat there. Because like I say, this has been a thorny issue for me of late, and I probably said enough. I'm going to move on because we talking about shipping, and I want to get onto that before I run out of time. But yeah, very much interested in your thoughts on this one. So please let me know. Jetsy says, PayPal, can you pay sellers by depositing money into their bank accounts? Yes, you kind of can. It's just we don't, so one of the things, the way you get paid on the back end, if with Atomic Avenue, is PayPal, in addition to being able to act as our merchant account. So basically, even if you pay with a credit card, you're still going through PayPal to do it. There are guys who run both the PayPal accounts and the Visa accounts for both systems. And on the back end, we have to have a way of paying the sellers on Atomic Avenue. So it's like, well, we're already doing business with them, and they also offer a service where they'll mass pay money back out to people for a nominal fee, and we got that workflow working. Is there a way to do it by linking checking accounts? Almost certainly. Does it involve a lot of complication? And also, yes, we'd have to now get up in the business of a lot of people knowing your checking accounts. Yeah, are we thrilled by that idea? No, really not. We want to get people paid. We don't want to get into anyone's business. But I'm not saying it can't be done. Everything can be done. That's the lesson of the modern world. But what gives you guys at the very least, I hate the feature not feature things. I hate the things where it's a lot of work and it doesn't make someone's life better. What would make your life better in terms of letting you guys pay the way you want, letting you get payments the way you want, and do business in a way that's comfortable for you? But where's your feelings on that one? And then let us know, because then we can better gauge, well, then what are the business realities of doing that thing, and what's the best way that we can make that happen, because it's going to affect both ComicBase and Atomic Avenue on that thinking. Atomic Avenue has a different set of problems than to deal with than ComicBase, which is just the software end of things. But yeah, we're definitely having a rethink on the whole thing. All right, let's move on, because I want to push on to other things. But please, if you have other thoughts, don't hesitate to write pbickford at human-computing.com. That's me personally, or to write in either forums for either ComicBase or Atomic Avenue, because yeah, if you don't get it, this is a hot subject. All right, let's talk shipping. So let me take this off the thing for a minute. All right, so, and I'm going to go over to the other screen if I can, because I want to talk about where some of these products come from. All right, so on the last show, we talked about ways that we ship products over here. And also I mentioned that we had, both gotten some really well shipped things down the line that we were really impressed with, and wanted to kind of explore how they worked in real life, what the weights were on these things, and so forth. Actually, I'm going to do the picture-in-picture thing so I can talk while displaying things. Yeah, so look, the reality of shipping is it's all about weight and protection, right? If I wanted to encase my thing inside a Sherman tank and ship the tank, well, then anything I ship is going to get there. It's going to get there just fine, especially if the tank's full of straw and stuffing. But that's going to be rather expensive to ship. It'll be impervious, but it'll be really expensive. So everyone who ships anything is always thinking, look, I got to get this thing to its destination. It's got to arrive in the condition I need it to arrive in, but I want to do this as inexpensively as possible while having the least damage possible. And so we're looked at a lot of different ways of shipping comic books and said, well, what are the ways that make the most sense in terms of shipping the kind of comic books we do? Now, I would say on all these things I'm about to say, adjust your expectations, according to the value of the comic books you're shipping. Because if I'm shipping around copies of Marvel, of Marvel Comics, #1, or any of the early, or a mint copy of Action Comics #1, I'm probably not even going to ship that damn thing. I'll probably road trip it myself. So there is a time and place to go to the ends of the earth to make sure that nothing happens to that comic. But then there's everything else where it's like, look, I will accept, a 2% chance of an up to 30% damage thing, and that makes sense given the methods I've got. So let's talk about, I tend to ship mostly kind of comic books in the $1 to $100 range. That's so that influences my thinking on these things. Like I say, adjust upward if you ship very expensive things, adjust downward if you ship things that are even cheaper than that. All right, so as I mentioned before, when I'm shipping like one comic book anywhere, my go-to, I'm going to go full screen on this guy for just a minute. Let me turn off the picture-in-picture. My go-to for shipping one comic book is a Stay Flat mailer, this guy right here. They run about 45 cents, 42 cents in bulk, and a 20 cent to 25 cent, depending on the amount you buy them, piece of cardboard stiffener. It's corrugated. I think it's its wall strength is like 200 or something like that. And then you put the bagged and boarded comic book dead center in the middle of the whole thing. It's buffered on all edges of the mailer by quite a while. It's not going to move because the friction of the bag is so intense on the whole thing once you mail it in there. And unless your mailman is just a psychopath, you don't typically need to do anything more than that. I mean, there are, again, the odd psychopathic mailman who will bend the thing over his knee in order to shove it into the little mailbox. That can happen to you once. After that, you always mark do not bend, and if that happens after that, you just ship via UPS to that address. But that is the 99% case. I think of things we've mailed in Stay Flat mailers. I don't know, out of 6,000-7,000, I forget how many thousands of packages we've mailed over time. I probably had problems with 2 or 3 of them over all the years. So it's these for the I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4 comic books works beautifully. And yes, one of the few problems I did have it was one with a psychopathic mailman who was literally bending the thing with his knee in order to shove it into a mail slot. And that one, if you're willing to go, if a guy's willing to go to that extent in order to cram the thing in, almost nothing I'm talking about will get there. You need to put it into a box that just can't be bent by normal humans. But all right, but let's talk about the more normal and more interesting case of how do I mail a couple comic books, or how do I mail, call it between 4 and 12 comic books anywhere. Now, this is the larger size. This one they say is with 28 comic books, but this is the Bags Unlimited mailing box over here. This is kind of our go-to for that sort of thing. It's slightly bigger than the comics themselves. Typically, if we have a bigger package, we'll put a little bit of padding in the corners of these things in order to ensure the corners. As you guys we talked about last time, all the action in terms of damaging comic books is all about the edges. So if a comic book, if this package gets dropped pretty much anywhere, on any kind of side thing like that, it's going to be fine. Nothing's going to get damaged, with the exception of if it gets hit right on the corner. At that point, between the acceleration of gravity, 9.8 meters per second squared, times the weight of the package plus whatever extra oomph the idiot chucking thing or dropping the thing on the ground, if all that gets concentrated in the points of the corners, right, at that point you've got a perfect way to bring down the value of all the comic books that are inside this box by at least 2 grades, because you'll have dented all the corners. We find this out when even like the much buffer mailers that we get from Diamond Comics come in, and every once in a while someone will just drop that whole package on its corner and it will just beat the hell out of 30 comic books at once. So that's the one you need to watch out for, that one. The way you solve that. So we had a guy who worked for us who used to be an ex-USPS guy. I'm sorry, not USPS, ex-UPS guy. He was kind of our shipping expert. And the thing he kept on drilling into us as we were, learning how to ship things is like, you're not here to armor, the package. You're there to immobilize the package. In other words, what you want to do is you always want to make sure that whatever's in your box doesn't move around, because, the sliding around, and especially the sudden bashes while sliding around, that's where the damage gets done. So the thing you want to do in particular is you want to make it so that whatever you're shipping doesn't move within the package. So if it's got a lot of extra space, tighten up the space. Shove crumpled paper, shove whatever you want. I mean, I've seen people do creative things by taping things into the insides of the packages in order to make sure it doesn't move around. But you want to immobilize the things within the corners of within the contents of the box. And importantly, don't make the box much bigger than whatever it is you're shipping. I mean, I could get. I was like, well, like a lot of times people will be like, oh, hey, I've got this great Amazon box laying around. I don't need to go out, and buy anything extra. And then they'll put like 20 comic books inside an Amazon box that they ship skis in or something, and so those 20 comic books are inside a perfect box. The box itself will do just fine at that whole thing, but the contents of that box will have slid around so much within the thing, it's almost like giving a kid traumatic brain injury when you shake a baby. It's like literally their movement within the box itself will have damaged it from on the inside. It won't be the shock from the outside that did it. It's the damage moving around inside. So worry about that from both dimensions. Make sure that you immobilize the contents, whatever you do. That said, look, for lower end comic books, or again, I wouldn't do this for anything. Like if this entire box is worth less than $75, this was pretty much my go-to for getting it out the door. I'm thinking that's going to change, because I'm just going to say it's a better solution. I think I feel about the way that I feel about if you guys remember Back to the Future, where he's talking about quick draw techniques, and he's talking about how cross draw across the body. He's explaining the gunfighter version when back set in the Old West. The straight up from the hip straight draw was slower than the cross body draw. Now I don't know in real life whether that's true, but he was just like, look, it's a better solution. We're going with it. And the better solution that's been invented, and we got a bunch of these in, is this very, very freaky looking box put out by Gemini Comic Supplies. So this is what the box looks like when it's unfolded, when you get them. All right. When you put something in them, it goes. You have this strange little flappy guy on the inside here. You see it's attached by that that half diamond shape right there. What happens is, and I grab a comic book because it's easier to show. Because all right. So here's a pulp, Thrilling Love. This is a pulp. I'm not even sure if it's going to fit, but let's pretend for now. By the way, shout out to Great Escape Comics in Nashville. After 6 years in Nashville, I finally, darkened your doorstep this last weekend, and dang it, you guys run a cool shop. I am definitely going to be back. It's one of those rare comic shops that has a little of everything, and it's all stuff I haven't seen before. I mean, other than like new comics. Because one thing about doing this particular job is I get very jaded seeing new comics books come in and out because I see them all. But I can go into the shop, and whenever I see a shop where I can discover something I haven't seen before, especially if you priced it like you want to actually sell it as opposed to keep it up on your back wall until it turns, brown with age. I'm excited. So, and these guys, everywhere you looked in the store was weird stuff that they'd gotten from wherever. And here's, again, Thrilling Love pulp. This is probably from 1940. It's a teen romance thing. It's beat to hell. The pages are, brittle as anything. And it was $1.99. As a matter of fact, it was less than that. It doesn't need to be, of massive value to be interesting. But this place was full of just interesting stuff. Anyway, let's take a bit this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this thing, put it inside here. It's got a bunch of little creases here, so you can, customize the depth of the box to whatever you've got going on. Fold it up like that. Fold the other end down there, and suddenly I've got a little sandwich right there. Now, they also have little pads you can add to this whole thing. They call them filler pads, where what they will do is, they more or less, give extra, buffer protection. They help square up the package, and they, handle like that. So now when you've got this little sandwich here, remember that little diamond-shaped flap? That's now going to fold in like this. And now here's the cool bit. So I've got a little box within a box, but notice on these edges right here, here, and here, that you're a good inch. Once you fold this down, you're a good inch in from the actual edge of the thing you're mailing on all four sides from that comic book. Plus, because of the way that they scored the things for different depths and everything, shake this thing all day long. This thing is not moving. I didn't have to tape it in. I didn't have to do anything else. There's no, if there's no motion, then there's no momentum to damage from the inside. And then if it gets damaged from the outside, I've got a 1-inch crumple zone on all four corners of this thing. I don't know what I'd have to do to this package to damage that book. I'm just going to call it. This is a better way. Now, the thing that got me hip to it was I saw a package like it come through with my copy of ISOM #1. If you guys back the the Rippaverse Kickstarter, and it had a version of the this is called, they call it the Gemini mailer. It's really called a flash mailer. It's by Gemini Comic Supply. They had a version of that one, but theirs was even cooler because they had done additional cuts on the whole thing where, if you were shipping something that was a little bit narrower or not, it actually formed some crumple zones interior to the package. So I mean, you could, I don't know if you're worried about someone's throwing the thing down and then jumping up and down on it or something, it would actually it would actually prevent damage from that. And I thought, well, that's the most over-engineered mailer I've ever seen in my life. Of course, I immediately reused it, next minute to reship something of my own. So I didn't keep it around because I wasn't thinking I was going to do a roundup on mailers. But one thing I noticed about it was, other than being completely over-engineered, I actually reached out to Eric July and I said, man, all my years of doing this thing, that's probably the coolest mailer I've ever seen. Where'd you get them? Can you tell me? Because I want to know, price them out and so forth. I didn't get a response back from him immediately, but I think I found basically where they came from, because the same guys who make the comic box that we were just talking about, and let me go ahead and put them on the screen here. Go ahead and stick myself in the key. They have, and this was pretty much the one I saw, they call it the No Crush comic mailer. And this guy right here, and they're only saying only for 3 or 4 comics, for 10 to 12 comic books. Realistically, you could go higher than that a bit. But that's the guy right here. And if you want to have a look at bagsunlimited.com, and look for their no crush mailer. There's actually a video they shot on it where they took a bunch of comic books and mailed them with various levels of protection from coast to coast and then back again using both USPS and UPS. And they showed basically how the mailer got just completely screwed with during the mailing process, but the contents were really just pristine, as you would expect. I mean, it's a really serious amount of protection. Unfortunately, there's two things I don't like about that mailer. I mean, for engineering standpoint, I love it. And again, please check that site out there. It's a really interesting as a cardboard engineering feat. I think it's really cool. Downside is it's heavy. I haven't gotten a chance to weigh it on the scale on this one, but it's notably heavier than any of the mailers that we've been talking about beforehand. The mailers we've been talking about beforehand, I'm going to go ahead and throw those on my postal scale here. The Stay Flat with the, let me go ahead and grab that. A Stay Flat mailer with a stiffener in it is going to run you 4.2 ounces. So remember, you're not just paying for, the cost of the supply itself, you're paying for whatever that adds to your shipping cost. And especially when you're shipping like one comic book or two comic books and you're shipping them first class, it tends to be the difference between whether that thing got out at the first class rate or whether it suddenly bumped you into priority mail, which is a whole other level of hurt. Now, the Gemini mailer over here, this guy right here, clocks in at 4 ounces exactly. Add another 0.4 ounces if you decide to use the filler boards. Looking at it, I gotta think vast majority of cases, even though they sell them that way and they are definitely pimping the filler boards on their site. Honestly, I think they sell a combo pack, which is a set of Gemini mailers plus a bunch of filler boards with it. I think the filler boards I got with that combo pack are going to last me quite a bit longer than the mailers will. I think I'll be divvying them out on an as needed basis, and I think they're going to last me a while. I mean, I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying that they're probably surplus to requirements in most cases. Anyway, unfortunately, the no crush mailer from Bags Unlimited, I remember being both quite heavy, and I do want to get some of them in-house to test with. But the other thing about them is they're also quite a bit more expensive. So the comic box themselves here. So if we look at this is like the slightly smaller version of the box that we've been looking at before. So again, I wouldn't feel too bad putting 7, 8, 10, 9, 10, 12 comics that didn't cost a fortune into a box like this. I mean, the vast majority of my packages made it with no problems whatsoever. The question is, can you handle 2-3% of your packages, coming to harm that way? If that's an acceptable loss rate, then that's something you can consider. When you buy like 100 pack of those, they're running $1.15 each, right? That's for the comic mailers we've up till this time that we've been using. The larger versions, $1.26. Now, and again, we order these things by stupid quantities, so we get them, I don't know, couple nickels, cheaper than that, but that's only because we buy stupid quantities. The no crush mailer they offer, and this one, as far as I can tell, is basically the one that Ripaverse was using. And if he's wrong, please, Eric July, please let me know, and I'll amend. But on those ones here, they want $1.45 for them, on sale for $1.30, or this larger one's $1.57 for those. It's not a bad way to go. It's going to get that comic book there safely. Again, if I were shipping a $1,000 comic book, very likely it'd be how I do it with something like that. But if I'm shipping just I don't know, 5, 6 comic books, and I want to get them there safely, regardless, I gotta say, I think the winner on this one, and let's go ahead and look at it, is over here is Gemini Comic Supply. So this is, again, this is the one that they pimp a lot, was the Flash Mailers and Filler Pads bundle from $49.95. That's 25 mailers, 50 filler pads, 100 mailers, 100 filler pads, $99, free shipping. So you're looking at $1 a box. Now, I don't know that, unless you go very, very heavy, these guys aren't, I think you have to go like $1,250 or higher worth of supplies at once to be considered a wholesaler. So I don't know if we're going to be there anytime flat, but basically in terms of like, sussing out what the total cost of this as a mailer is, I think you're looking at $1 a box. The good news is you're looking at 4 ounces. So, it's 4 ounces to ship something in perfect safety as compared to what we've been doing now, which is, buck 15, so a little bit more to ship something with 97% safety or maybe 95% safety if you're talking about the larger ones. I gotta say, I think I probably bought my last of the traditional comic mailers. Um, I think they've invented a better way over at Gemini, and to the extent that they went back to the lab and over at Bags Unlimited and redid a no crush mailer over here. I think this might be, for some value of the word better, I think this might be better. I think the problem, on the other hand, is I think this particular one comes with a lot of weight and a lot of additional cost on it. So I don't think this guy is going to be my go-to. I'm going to get some into test with, but if my memory serves in terms of the weight on the whole thing, it's hard to say, well, okay, I got an extra 30 cents a mailer, but more importantly, I probably got an extra 50, 60 cents worth of weight I'm adding with each one of those. And I'm not sure if they bought me anything extra in terms of protection. So I suspect for my, comic orders of that major size, I suspect that the Gemini is going to be getting our business for at least a while until we find a better way. So anyway, check them out, see what you think yourself. I'm curious to see what you guys think in the chat. But that's kind of where we're coming around on the whole thing. It's funny because like the PayPal thing, it takes a lot to get us out of a groove when we've been doing things a certain way for a while, and it's been working with a pretty high success rate. But man, better solution comes along, especially when you hit the price point and the weight point. God, I got to give it up to Gemini, man. I think they did it. I was a skeptic, but I am not a skeptic anymore. And the packages we've mailed with them so far have been aces. Again, it's hard for me to imagine what I could even do to that package in order to damage what's inside of it. So that's about it. Okay. Ashley says, guess I'll be riding this one again, late again. Anyway, hey, Ron, we're glad you joined us. Anyway, and Jetsi also wants to point out that the Gemini mailers also fit nicely into a flat rate legal envelope. So that's another thing. If you need to get things there a little bit faster, is they actually engineered these guys, the Gemini ones, which I can't even show it this way, but let's go ahead and put it over here. Lose the front key. If I'm really cool, one of these days I'm going to write my macro in for switching that automatically drops the inset key when I go back to main camera. Well, I'll get around to that. But this one right over here, they also, if you look at that length on the whole thing, it's basically just a little shy of a USPS flat rate legal, which is probably going to solve a lot of use cases for people who want to get things there fast. So that's probably going to be useful. All right, well, anyway, that's what I got. Interested in your comments on the whole thing. Everyone's got a solution on the whole thing. I always love the solutions that are nice, clean, easy to implement, and don't involve lots of Frankensteining and tape, or wedging packing peanuts into weird places. But anyway, I'm glad I found those, and I'm going to give it up to the Gemini guys. All right, well, guys, that's about it for that. Oh, I'm going to throw in one last recommendation before I bow out here, and that is, if you guys are hip to the Amazon Prime Day sale, which they're doing twice this year because I guess the economy's going that great. Let's see, Amazon Prime Day 2022. And then let's go 980 Pro because I wasn't quite cool enough to queue this up ahead of time. But this guy right here, that's the Western Digital one. I'm sorry. I want the, did I say 980? I said 980. I believe, let's see if we can find it here. The Samsung 980 Pro SSD. I'll just go to the Amazon site. Amazon.com. Come on, Amazon, go. All right. 980 Pro and 2 terabyte. If I hadn't just stuck 2 of these, not 1 but 2 of the 2 terabyte ones in my last computer, the one that the one that you're not watching, it's the one that's running the show. This is a freaking steal, and these things are unbelievably fast. This is a 2 terabyte PCIe NVMe SSD drive, 2 terabytes. They are, I want to say, I clocked these in at like something like 6,600, megabytes per second read. The writes were nearly as fast. They are crazy, crazy fast. If you are building a new system or you're thinking about building a new system, I can't recommend these highly enough. They are one of the major reasons that the specs on my new system are turning in disk performance benchmarks. They're about twice. It does everything in ComicBase about twice as fast as my last system. And this is a big reason. So if you're in the market at all, man, I'd say grab these in the next few hours while you still can get them. $189 for these things is basically half price. It's a steal. So I couldn't let that one go without pointing that one out, because that is just too good a deal to be true. So I don't get a commission. That's coming from pure love, because I think the things are neat. Anyway, I think that does the show for now. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next week. Tell your friends, and we'll see you then. Take care. Bye-bye.